Probably the first time I've been interrupted. Alright. So we're a bit late on this one.
A little bit.
Just a wee bit, but...
Hey, better late than never.
Yep. So basically we're doing this for the inevitable DVD release. So obviously Alysa's here with me. We're doing this in her apartment because it's convenient and, quite frankly, much better lit and more cozy than my little car.
I'd like to think.
Yeah. I perhaps live in my car now, but that's another discussion. So we are here to talk about Miyazaki's The Wind Rises.
Yes.
Which is, of course, his swan song, the last movie he's making, and quote-unquote, before he retires.
We'll see you later.
Give him about
see you later.
Give him about a year. I don't know. Give or take. Now, as I think I mentioned this in a popular review, I'm not a huge Miyazaki fan. I do admire his work, although I haven't seen enough of it, I feel, to call myself a fan. I've seen Spirited Away. That's really
always a good one to watch.
The only true Miyazaki film I've ever watched all the way through, I think. I saw From Up Puppy Hill, which was made by his son.
I haven't seen that.
That's a good one. It's technically made by his son, so but I know Miyazaki helped a lot with it, so I guess it kind of counts. Mm-hmm. Although it's kind of questionable. So this is like the first real Miyazaki experience I've seen in theaters.
So how was that for you? I mean, coming from someone who doesn't really follow his work.
Like I said, I always know he's a very creative individual. I like that the topic that it goes into is very, very unique, and from a historical standpoint, and just from a storytelling standpoint. I really, of course, you know, from Miyazaki film, the visuals are always spectacular.
That's his signature.
Beautifully drawn, beautifully animated. Dialogue is not necessarily a strong suit, I would say.
Never is in any of his films, actually.
Yeah.
Less of an emphasis on the dialogue and more of an emphasis on the aesthetic beauty of the story.
The atmosphere and the music and the sound and all that comes together.
That's a lot more, I think, what he focuses on.
Now, you've actually seen both the original Japanese and the translated version now.
Yes. So 2 weeks before I watched it with Michael, I actually watched the Japanese version first. And then I watched the English version with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who voices...
the main character.
Jiro.
Yeah.
Jiro, right?
Jiro, I believe so. We got the cast list here.
Yes, we do, just in case. So from my perspective, it was interesting. There were some subtleties, actually.
In what way?
The way that the characters were, and also just, obviously, the voices. But, like, different personalities with the voice. Like, his boss, Kurokawa?
We're guessing that's the name we don't know.
Kurokawa was not as much of a pushover in the Japanese version as he was in the English version. He was a little bit more, like, stern and, like, let's do this.
Yeah, I think he was a pushover in this one.
What was that?
Do you think he was a pushover in this?
Yeah.
I don't know about pushover is a word I would use. You mean, you're talking about the little short guy, right? I don't know about pushover is the right word I would use.
I don't know how I would describe it, but there is an obvious difference.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Like, what we saw from Up Puppy Hill, I know we had Chris who saw both the translated and the untranslated version. He said had similar things where most of the tone for a lot of the dialogue is very, very different.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a cultural thing. I guess people who speak Japanese could probably catch on the more emotional influxes than we can. Obviously.
You know what's funny was I actually was watching some behind the scenes clips on YouTube.
Really?
Of, like, the cast, the English class, yeah. English class, doing all, like, their dialogues and stuff, and that was really interesting. Just watching them portray their characters, like John Cransini from The Office, seeing him repeat it over and over, just being really good sports about it, like taking it, I'm pretty sure, like, 20 times at a time.
Oh yeah.
But, like, their movements and everything, and then actually seeing it being translated onto a visual, like, film is interesting.
Oh yeah, I love watching those kind of behind the scenes stuff. We'll get back to the movie, but now we're on this topic. Like, for example, like Mark Hamill, we did the recordings for the Joker back in the old Batman cartoon days. He got so into it, his animation was so lively, they actually incorporated his movements into the animation character.
That's cool.
Way before, like, they kind of do it more now, where they incorporate the actors' like, presence and whatever they do it more to the animation. This is before they really kind of start doing that more and more.
You know what that reminds me of is that one movie where Will Smith is a fish.
Oh God!
What's that called?
I know what
Shark Tale.
Shark Tale. That's it.
It's funny because they actually, like, incorporated the the actors and actresses' faces.
And that
too.
was creepy.
I thought that was cool.
It's
If you can, why not, right? You
It's-
got Missy Elliott. What else? Christina Aguilera.
Yeah, and then Disney did it with Disney's A Christmas Carol, and a few other like moms and like Mars Needs Moms. Or anything. That was creepy. There's a line you have to cross.
I don't know.
You have to walk. Anyway, back to the movie at hand. So for those who don't know, The Wind Rises, it takes place during pre and post World War II, about a Japanese airplane engineer, or what do you call him? Aerospace engineer?
Would he be an aerospace engineer? I'm not sure.
I'm just going to go airplane engineer because that's the term that's easy to identify.
He engineered airplanes.
There you go. See, I can deal with that. So.
And it's actually interesting. I was just looking it up earlier. It was like between, I don't know, like 1910 to like 1980. Basically, like the story.
It doesn't age very well. It ages very well then if it goes from 1910 to 1980.
Yeah.
60 years, not a single gray hair.
I know, right? I'm saying like his whole life.
Oh, his whole life.
I'm not
okay.
saying the movie actually.
Oh, okay. I thought the movie takes place between 1910 and 1980.
So yeah, it basically like follows a good portion of his life, like maybe his like from childhood to his probably his 30s, and just he had an interesting life. You know, he lived at a very interesting time.
So was this based on a true character, true person, or?
It was based on a manga that Hayao Miyazaki actually created years ago. Yes.
Okay.
And it's been adapted with I think another character. Loosely based off another character, but yeah, so they took that and then they animated it.
Okay.
So I think it's something he's been actually working on the side for a very long time.
Makes sense.
So.
One thing that confused me is like I'm not used to this kind of style of movie. I don't usually watch more Japanese animation movies, so it was very off-putting initially because it does like 3 different time jumps very quickly. There's no transition period to when these time jumps happen. They just happen, and you're just kind of expected to go along with them. It's like 1 minute in the very beginning of the movie, he's a little kid. He's talking about, suddenly has this huge vision from, what was it, it was like Duke something. It was
Caproni.
Duke Caproni, who is like a very well-known like airplane engineer who he admires and just thinks is this huge genius. And he has this very vivid dream sequence where he sees a beautiful dream sequence, by the way, with all the colors and the designs and everything and the sounds. The sounds are very interesting to me in this. Which, I pointed out to you like a couple weeks ago, last week.
Very humanistic.
Well, it's like, it sounds like, I'm assuming this was intentional, but like, and the majority of the dream sequence, a couple of the actual sequences, which made me a little confused on what they're trying to go with this, but all the sounds sound like they're made by people trying to make sounds of airplanes.
And I like that, actually. It's,
Well,
it's really humorous, actually, because you're using like human sounds to make mechanical sounds.
Well, it's like, so when like the airplanes are going off in the dreams, you hear it go, and like, that kind of stuff. It sounds exactly like the way I'm doing it. I'm not emphasizing it or dramatizing it.
Back to like the random sequences thing, that's another thing Miyazaki does a lot in his movies. There's a lot of like incongruencies with just like shifting of scenes and stuff, and that's just kind of his style. It is really weird though. Like even RoboCop kind of reminded me of that. Sorry, I know. Weird. Okay.
How do you okay, this is a twist I was not expecting. Let's combine RoboCop with Miyazaki.
Like with RoboCop, you weren't sure what was reality and what was like him dreaming and all that stuff.
I would say the original Total Recall is probably more similar to that than RoboCop.
That one, so.
That's basically all Total Recall is is that question. But yeah, I would agree to a certain extent that's what it is.
Maybe it alludes to his character, because Jiro's kind of a dreamer.
He is a dreamer.
So he incorporates like his world with his reality with his world in his head. You know, like him drawing all of those details and making calculations for like the wings of the plane, and then he can see it crashing and he feels like he's right there.
Yeah.
You know, so
well, it's like, again, that's kind of
beautiful.
That's what I liked about the sound aspect of it, is because I feel like they're trying to kind of, like what I say, kind of push the dreamer aspect. Like, this is how he's imagining this is happening right now. It's like I'm assuming the same goes for the earthquake that happens very early on in the beginning of the movie. It kind of does the same thing. It's like I'm assuming that's kind of like him imagining.
It's a very intense scene.
Very intense.
Do you remember the scene where all the houses are literally being lifted up in this like
Yeah, the wave
like
thing.
wave. It was just like you felt like you were there, and even like the smallest detail of that one little pebble falling onto the ground, and the like entire theater is extremely quiet. Anyway, so who turns up on a Sunday? Anyways, like I was saying, there's just so much small, subtle details, which
I would agree with that. One thing that made me interesting about the earthquake scene in particular, to elaborate what we're talking about, after he has a big long dream sequence with the Duke, we flash forward years later where he's on a train, which I'm assuming this is the same time a major earthquake in Japan happened. I don't know my history very well in Japan, so I can't say if that's historically accurate or not. I'm kind of assuming it is. There's a big earthquake, and we see this earthquake kind of coming their way, where you have or again, it does like the made-up sound kind of thing. Which made me wonder, is that just how, what's his name, Gory?
Who?
The main character?
Jiro?
Jiro. I don't know where I got Gory.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
There you go. Or, what was it again?
What?
Name again, what was it?
Jiro?
Jiro. Okay.
I got it right here.
There you go. So when Jiro, I kind of figured, is that Jiro imagining what the earthquake looks like heading his way after the fact, or was that...
I think that actually happened, but when he was in the college and he was just sitting with his friend smoking a cigarette, and then he saw that Caproni poster, that's when he started daydreaming again, I think.
Maybe, yeah, that could have been it. But so the earthquake happens, and in the process he ends up saving the lives of a fairly little girl, like in her early teens. I've had to guess, maybe probably no younger than that.
Probably 17.
Was it 17?
Yeah, because he was in college, so.
Okay, yeah, so that makes the age difference later on a little less creepy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was like 17, 18.
Anyway, so he saves her and an older woman who broke her leg after the earthquake.
Were they related? Was that her like helper or like what?
I don't know what
she
that was.
Well off.
Obviously, very popular. All right. Where was I going with that? Right. I don't know what the relation was. It's not that important in the grand scheme of things because the older woman only pops up very briefly in one other scene.
Yes.
And then she kind of takes off. But and then right after that earthquake, we fast forward another several years where Jiro's in a much more established. He's getting his first job at a airplane company.
Yes. Is it Mitsubishi? Right.
Was it
Mitsubishi?
Sure. I don't know. As everyone knows, names is not my forte, especially Japanese names. I'm no disrespect, but I can't pronounce or remember any of them. I'm so sorry.
It's okay then. It's okay.
Okay. I'll survive. I'll push through. But so he starts working at this airplane company, and that's pretty much the rest of the movie is basically his various adventures inside his company as he. Meanwhile, as the push from Germany and the World War II war propaganda starts kind of pushing more towards him, and he's forced to make planes that have weapons on them.
Which is not technically his dream, actually.
No, in fact, it says very, very clearly early on, the Duke tells him in his dream, he says, planes are a beautiful thing, but not for war, basically. And that's pretty much the central theme for the majority of the movie, and that especially towards the climax in the movie as well, when he finally gets to design the plane that he wants to make, instead of what he has to make. But in the end, it goes into, again, the dreamer aspect of being an engineer, and also just a lot of the technical aspects, too. It actually talks a fair amount about, strangely enough, terms I actually vaguely understand, tension and torque. And
as a former computer engineering major, computer engineering or computer science?
Computer engineering.
Computer engineering. As a former computer engineering major, did you personally relate to his struggle or story at all?
I would say I understood more where he was coming from an engineering standpoint, because I've been in that position. I know a lot of people are very passionate about the work, so I can definitely see where all the schematics. I liked how how the visuals kind of show how it's working in his head, because
the sound of the wing going.
Like the winds, or when you see the schematics and he shows the screws and the springs and all that stuff. I actually really liked all that, those nice little touches, because that's kind of how it works for a lot of engineers.
And you can tell they did their research too.
Yeah, a lot of
the history of the actual story and the actual
the technology at the time.
Yeah.
Because especially at the time they were still using paper planes, and metal planes are made in Germany were a big freaking deal. Especially when the big old bombers, huge bombers that we all know. Well, no, it's pretty well now. Was pretty new at the time. At least as far as my memory goes. Again, history's not my forte. But over time, basically, it's like the movie almost seems to be like his struggles trying to make a working plane because not only one plane actually flies successfully. Well, I'm talking about 2 fly successfully, but the first one crashes because the pilot got too overconfident.
Yeah, putting too much speed on that.
Tension, but again, just yeah, along the way, he basically goes to he goes to Germany to look at the planes over there. He goes to where else does he go? He goes to a couple other places.
I don't know. He said they mentioned that he was gonna go see the world, but I don't really remember all too much of it. I mean, most of the focus was on his personal life with Satori. What's her name?
Oh yeah, that doesn't come out till the second half though.
Yeah, Satomi.
Satomi, all right. Satomi being the 17-year-old girl that he rescued on the train. So what happens is after he's gone to Germany, he's looked at all the metal planes over there. He tries to implement them himself into like a Japanese fighter plane. Things go wrong and that plane crashes. And then again, another beautiful sequence. And I guess that leaves him emotionally dead inside, basically. And he ends up going to this resort-type place in...
It doesn't say where.
Doesn't say where. Some remote place.
In Japan.
In Japan.
Yeah.
That is very nice and very pleasant and very spiritually reinvigorating, evidently. And that's when the love plotline comes into the mix.
You know what's crazy is just, like, you know, we live in a world right now where we have smartphones, so it's easy to connect to people, and it's easy to find people and stalk people on Facebook. But
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never done that.
This is a time where cell phones didn't exist. The internet didn't exist. So how crazy is it that these 2 people who met on a train during like the biggest earthquake at that time rekindle, like, and like basically cross paths again? Like, that's crazy.
You could argue it's fate or destiny or
Either or. So definitely like there's something magical about them being reunited again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it was a very sweet story. I will say that much. I usually don't go for that kind of stuff.
Sweet until the end.
Until the end, yeah. They go for the Shakespearean angle. Which just kind of came out of nowhere. So I was like, oh, okay. I'll get to that in a bit. But, so he's walking along the path, and the girl, meanwhile, is painting, like, I'm assuming, like, hillsides on this big, huge open valley. Beautiful valley, by the way. And winds pick up, and the umbrella goes flying, and now I've learned that catching a flying umbrella is a good pickup tactic. I don't know.
He wasn't looking for it, though.
I'm just saying, it's good to keep that stuff in mind. I don't know if I'd ever need to use that, but it's...
Never know.
Anyway, so he catches her umbrella, gives it back, and then he was like, there's something very familiar about him. And then it turns out, oh, wait, he's the guy that saved me from the train. Okay, sweet. And that kind of starts their little romance kindling. And I mentioned this part in the car on the way back, but meanwhile, while this is going on, there's a German guy at the resort too. And this guy really creeped me out. He wasn't supposed to be creepy. At least I don't think he was supposed to be creepy.
There's some characters in Hayao Miyazaki films that do tend to be creepy, but they are supposed to be sweet and supporting characters.
I mean, what did you think?
I don't know. It's just another like Miyazaki thing. Like
maybe I guess
you gotta get used to.
For me,
you remember in Spirited Away there was like that old lady, right?
Yeah, the one with really
same thing.
big nose.
Same thing. Like.
Yeah, but she was kind of the bad guy though, so that was kind of more validated there. This one is just he's just out there taking a smoke, just relaxing. All of a sudden, this German guy comes up, sits next to him, and the camera pans right to his face, where they really make a point to really detail his eyes out. So he's just staring at you with a big creepy smile, just like this. And then he starts spilling out war propaganda, like how the Nazis are going to cause a great world war and they're going to destroy everything. They need to be stopped. Never losing the smile, by the way, while he's saying this. And then he looks away and turns back. He's gone. So,
maybe he's there for humor.
That's funny.
I know when I was watching Ponyo. I know you're not familiar.
I know.
Have you seen it?
I know. I've seen a lot of it. I've never watched it all the way through.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Ponyo's made some really creepy faces.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know. Either way, it's just like, ew. And he paused a few more times, and I was just kind of like, stop.
Just like, no.
Stop looking at me like that. With the Ghibli's.
Studio Ghibli.
I forgot about that joke. But meanwhile, just as the part where he like confesses love kind of was surprisingly frank.
Or he does?
He does, because what he does, it was very sweet. Where like she's kind of she gets sick and gets locked inside her room. I'm assuming like the closest thing they have to a penthouse suite there, because it's she's the daughter of the owner of the resort, and he throws paper planes to her, constantly modify and make them just a little bit better than the last time. So they keep tossing planes back and forth. It's very sweet.
Almost metaphorical, because he tries his best to perfect his planes so that he can get to her.
Well, it's just a part of his personality. So it's like, it makes sense that he would. It's like, no, that didn't work this time. Let me try this, and then maybe they'll give me more, not torque or like velocity or reduce air drag, stuff like that. Terms I actually understand. That's a nice change of pace. My voice sounds raspy right now. I apologize. I've been talking a lot for the past few days, and I've got a little bit of a chest cold. So, anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So they go. It suddenly pops into a night where he's having dinner with the head of the hotel, and the German dude is up playing a piano piece somewhere, a little German song. Which again, that was kind of nice. And then he just goes. It's like the German guy walks up to him and goes, "What a beautiful place to relax and rebuild and find love." And he goes, "You're not in love, are you?" He goes, "Yes, I am." It's like, wow, really forward about it. He goes, "It's not my daughter, is it?" "Yes, it is." Wow, you are bold.
Times were different back then.
I guess so, but even then it's like, wow, I don't think I could ever just come out and say it like that. I don't know. I don't quite have that much courage. But yeah, and then right after that, the girl comes down, confesses her love for him, and then just drops this bombshell. "Oh, by the way, I have tuberculosis. I'm gonna die pretty soon."
At least she told him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in A Walk to Remember, Mandy Moore waited a really long time to tell him. So I'm glad she told him straight up front.
I mean, granted, it was pretty frank. It's like, okay, I'm okay with this, but you should know that I have tuberculosis. That's gonna be a problem, obviously. So my mother died of it. Now I have it. So if you're okay with that, let's do this. So it's like,
she didn't really say, like, if you're okay with that. She was saying it like, this is a problem, and then he said he didn't care.
okay, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, he was more like,
It's like,
nothing can, like,
I'm willing to give it a
take
shot.
away.
Yeah. So again, it's a very sweet idea. Like, I play the cynical card, but I'm a complete sap. I'll be the first to admit it. And if I don't, my mother will. So, yeah, and then the rest of the movie is basically about building planes, hiding from the secret police that are after him because crazy German guy decides to spill out war secrets. At least I'm assuming that's the reason why.
That really didn't make any sense to me. I feel like that could have been a little bit better explained.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know... I mean, he didn't disclose any information to the German guy. The German guy, disclosed it from him and then sped off. And he is kind of fishy after that whole thing. It's just weird. And I was a little confused as to why they were after him.
Yeah. It's never fully explained. Just kind of, well, this happened now, so just
go with it.
Go with it. Have fun. So, after that, it's all about the Shakespearean Ellen twin, like them spending their last moment, like last years together, or find a way to make it work. And very disturbing scene with the lung hemorrhage, which I was surprised to find in this movie.
Oh, when she's painting?
Yeah, like the main character, what's it? Jiro, yes, got it right. All right. Satomi. All right, so Jiro gets a message saying that Satomi had a massive lung hemorrhage, and it was a beautifully disturbing scene. Just the way the colors contradicted each other. I thought that was beautifully well done, but it was still like, wow, that's really dark because there's no like sound. It's just all visuals, music, ambiance, and I thought that was very, very effective. And just because like all of a sudden she's painting, and all of a sudden she starts pretty much just hacking up blood, basically. And just the bright red of that contradicts with the paint of the colors. It was perfectly conveyed the emotions it was going for.
Every scene that Satomi's in is just like she's gorgeous. Like, she's very beautiful. Like, the scene where she and Jiro are getting married, and she's, like, dressed up, and she's, like, in a kimono, and there's, like, cherry blossoms everywhere, and her hair's, like, finally down, and it's, like, long, and, like, you feel, like, beauty with her presence, you know? Something that, like, kind of bothered me, though, was Jiro's sister. Like,
Yeah,
I really feel like she
forgot.
killed a lot of scenes for me. Like, she was cute as a little girl, but as she got older, like, especially the part where she finds out that Satomi runs away and she just starts crying, like, it was just the fakest cry ever. Like, just her big mouth opening, like, wow! Like, I was like, oh, you couldn't have been more, like, subtle about, I don't know. That's just a nitpicky thing for me. I thought I was just imagining that in the first time I saw the movie, but then the second time I was like, nah.
No,
any language,
just...
I still get annoyed at you. That's just a picky thing.
I hate you in every language. No, I didn't really mind the sister that. It didn't really bother me that much. I think that's pretty much equivalent of the German guy to me.
Okay.
Probably. Granted, I don't think the little sister creeped anyone out, but I don't think it's possible someone out there. I don't know. I try not to judge, but. I actually forgot all about the little sister until you just mentioned her.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's been a while since I saw this. I'm trying to, like, refresh my memory at the same time as we're talking about it. But, yeah, and then just after that, it's all about how he finally designs his perfect plane, which successfully flies, and spending his last days with his wife and stuff like that. It's all very well made. I would say so. Like, the music is, for me, I think, one of the highlights for me on top of the visuals, because it is beautiful music, I think, in my opinion. Because it's all, like, orchestrated, it's all, like, piano and, like, violin and string family, stuff like that, which I'm a sucker for. It doesn't matter what the movie is. You got a good combination of both, and I'm just, yeah, okay, I'll buy the soundtrack. You got me. But
Yeah.
But, it's like all the visuals work really well. I thought the story was very well paced.
I would have to disagree, but...
Okay, maybe not very well paced. There's some parts where kind of flubbed up.
It started to pick up right as they met up again. But there was a period where he was doing his own thing to the point where he met up with her that was just... It could have been a little shorter, in my opinion.
I don't know about shorter. I guess you could probably could have been compacted a little better.
Like, is the story about his love for this girl, or is the story about him perfecting this idea of a perfect Japanese airplane?
I would argue it's both.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but yeah, it's weird to focus on one or the other.
I mean, like, I kind of, now thinking about it now, I kind of see what you're saying. I would agree with it. Like, for me, it was kind of hard. It was hard for me to tell up to, like, the halfway point kind of where they were going with this.
Yeah.
But I think a large part of it is just, it's about, like, his dreams and his life and his aspirations.
Maybe it is, yeah, there you go. Maybe it's about his life. And
Yeah,
that's why it's like everything has equal attention.
Yeah, and that's why it feels a little disjointed until, like, the second half. Like, I forgot to talk about the buddy, too, the pessimistic one.
Oh, played by, oh my gosh, why am I blanking out? John Cransini. Yes, his name is Honjo. He's hilarious, actually. Like, he's probably my favorite character, because he's good-natured, but he's got a little bit of pessimism in him.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, I think that's another thing. I think I realized what the movie is kind of about, now that I'm coming back to me, is, like, the constant theme thrown through movies, like, is The Wind Rises, which is a poem that is said by the female main character in the beginning of the movie, and is constantly, the Duke is constantly asking him, is like, is the wind still rising? I kind of felt like that was kind of like a metaphor for kind of like,
Life.
Well, life and the fact that it has kind of its ups and downs. Like, the movie is very, very dour for, like, the first half of the movie. Like, very kind of pessimistic, which isn't helped by best friend over here who likes to take that dark spin on everything they're talking about. Like, where Japanese planes are going, how they're technologically behind, stuff like that.
Favorite line is like, well, I'm going to get married tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And he says something about, like, more irony for you.
More irony. Oh, no, so the line preceding that was like a person constantly at work needs to come home to a family or something like that. And it's more irony for me or something like that. Japanese culture. Yeah, I'm not going to go further than that. Except for I pissed somebody off. But, every culture's different.
Yeah.
Where was he going with that? But then it's like, but the wind rises, so it's like it's kind of a metaphor for change, or at least that's kind of the way I interpret it. So like the wind rises, you have the part where they're trying to catch up with the competitor, then everything falls apart, and then you get that kind of like the rising hope when he meets up with Satomi. There's one Hakalugi. I don't know. S-woman. And it's kind of like that's kind of like when he starts picking himself back up, and the wind starts rising again. He starts trying again. He's more passionate about his work. He's more passionate about his family. He has something to live for, kind of thing. Which made the very, very end a little confusing.
Yeah, it's really unclear. Like, what is he gonna do next now that he's reached his dream? Like, is he going to build planes for planes without having, missiles and weapons attached to it, or like I guess that's parts kind of left up to interpretation.
Yeah, which I know is not exactly your favorite form of ending.
I love having close. I love it when the directors make the ending for me. I hate when they give me the decision, because then I like spend the next couple days just thinking, well, what if this happened, or like what if that happened?
That's kind of the point, though. It leaves it up to you to decide where the story goes from there.
Like Inception.
Okay, Inception's kind of a rare case where it's like, no, that's
Shutter Island. Come on, like, let me know. Like, why do you gotta give me that?
Okay, there are limits. I should say there are limits to which points it goes like, oh, that's interesting. To oh, that's annoying. But Inception, walks that very thin line. Lost jumps right the hell over it.
Yep.
But no, like the very, very end, obvious spoiler, ends in a dream sequence where he's talking to the Duke after he gets the perfect plane he wanted to make, flying, and was used as Japanese fighters for the war. And this dream sequence presumably takes place after the war ends, because they directly say, well, now the war is over, pretty much. And then... well,
then it's assumed that he's going to create planes for just planes.
It's assumed, but I was okay with the ending, because at that point, that was the story, pretty much. Like, it was him building planes throughout this whole war period, and it was about his relationship with his wife, who unfortunately passed away shortly before... Was it before or after he finished the plane?
During.
Okay.
Right, when they completed it, she left.
That's right.
So it's assumed that she was like, she knew she was going to die, and she wanted to leave in a good way. And because you can tell, like, even he knows something's wrong, because he's not even fazed by his success of a plane that he's been working on for, like,
he knows
years.
something's up.
He just looks at the hills where she's going back to the, what's it called?
It was like a resort where they presumably get better, but really it doesn't work.
He was looking there, and so he knew.
Yeah, so at that point, like in the dream sequence, she comes up and saying, you have to live. It's like, was he suicidal before? Did I miss that part? But at the same time, I get why, because at that point, his life was the planes, and it was his wife, so it's like, now, what does he have to live for? It doesn't tell you, although it implies that he kind of finds his own meaning, whenever that is. So it leaves on a happy note.
He seemed like he accepted it, though.
Yeah.
When he was, like, visiting his wife the first time, she told him, or I guess the first time he visited her, he was, like, crying while working on his work. But at this point, at the end of the movie, he just was like, well, things fell apart, and that's really
And after that one, I felt like, okay, the story's over at that point. I was okay with kind of how they ended it. Ambiguity doesn't bother me as much as it does you. I'm okay with subtle implications to leave the story. So I was okay with it. You weren't very fond of it, I take it.
Oh, that's just a personal preference. I feel like with movies and TV series, there has to be some sort of reward for me at the very end. Otherwise, I feel like, not necessarily I wasted my time, but I feel like
gypped.
There has to be something for me at the end.
Fair enough. I can respect that. And that comes down to preference. Like you can argue the ability to think about a movie after it's over, though, is the reward, though, because it sticks with you.
Or haunts you. Tortures you.
Fair enough. Okay, so final thoughts, I guess.
Really good movie. Make sure you don't eat crazy food beforehand.
Wait, what does that have to do with anything?
When I watched the Japanese version, I had coffee, like, earlier that day. It was, like, strong coffee, and so my stomach was just gurgling the whole time. And it's, like,
very quiet movie.
Yeah, I forgot, like, those type of movies are the quietest movies, so, like, my stomach would just be like, grrr,
No.
like, so I made sure the second time I didn't.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It lives up to the expectations that, Hayao Miyazaki has in all of his films. Is it my favorite? I wouldn't say it is, but it's still worth watching.
So where would you say this ranks as far as Miyazaki films go?
I'd have to say Spirited Away is probably the most popular one. Princess Mononoke is really good too. My Neighbor Totoro is up there too. What else? Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I guess it's different, with his newer stuff. I feel like you have to categorize it differently.
Really?
Like Ponyo and
like
all
they
that
involve
stuff.
less fantastical elements?
They involve. Well, I know Ponyo was working with the Disney studios too. So there's, I don't know. It's up for interpretation.
Fair enough.
How about you? What do you think?
I was speaking from a person who's not a big not a huge follower of Miyazaki, and not necessarily a fan because I like his work, but I would say it does stand very strong on its own. Like I said, going back to what you're saying about being a very quiet movie, I like those kind of movies. Like, I like movies that will allow you to just take time and just kind of soak in what's happening. It gives you time to really just process what's going on. Be able to.
That's why you like 12 Years a Slave so much.
Yes, it's stuff like that. I love movies that take its time, or not to an extent. There's an extent where it's like, okay, wrap it up. Like Noah was a victim of
I
this.
can see where you're going with that, because I hate movies that just want to pack so much in, but then they end up, like, rushing to finish the story, so you
Well, it's like, it allows you to kind of process the powerful feelings that are going through the character. Like, 12 Years a Slave is a very good example now that you bring that up. Where it's like, adding something really, really heavy, then all of a sudden they just have a few, like, scenery shots of, like, trees over a sunset or something like that. And that worked because, like, that gives you time to just process what the hell just happened.
Instead of being constantly hit. With
Exactly. So it's like, it gives you time to think about it. It gives you time to process.
So I'm guessing you didn't like Scott Pilgrim's versus the World.
Actually, I love Scott Pilgrim.
Okay.
But
that's the kind of movie where it's just like hitting you, like bam, bam, bam.
That's
bam.
a very different style of movie, though.
Yeah.
That's very, very different. No, I love Edgar Wright. He's one of my favorite directors. I can't wait to see what he does for Ant-Man.
Oh, Paul Rudd, my hubby.
I thought Jack Skellington was your hubby.
Oh, he is too. So is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Shout outs to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. If you're watching.
So is this some kind of what do they call it? Poly whatever.
No.
Things. All right.
They're from different universes, so it's okay.
They're different Sure, why not? Let's go with that. Paul Rudd and George Gordon-Levitt exist in different universes.
They do.
Sure.
They've never been in a movie together.
That's like the Bruce Wayne argument. It's like, well, I'm not saying I'm Batman, but you're just seeing me and Batman in the same room, is all I'm saying. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend this movie if you could still find it in theaters. It's very hard to find in theaters right now, so really at this point, just look for the DVD.
DVD release.
DVD or Blu-ray release. If you're a Miyazaki fan, obviously this is right up your alley. If you just like quiet movies or atmospheric movies, this is a very good choice too. Overall, if you just like very atmospheric, very visually oriented movies, like I said, it's not the strongest in terms of dialogue, but other than that, like, it makes up for it in other ways. It still gets the message across, and I thought it got very well done. A few pacing issues, as we discussed,
Yep.
but overall, I really liked it.
Me too.
So, I think that about wraps everything up. So on that note, we will be back later this week, probably with the Raid 2. I don't know.
Oh! Have you seen the first one?
I have not seen the first.
Oh!
Do you want to come with me to go see the Raid 2?
We'll have to talk about it, but have you not seen the first one?
Muha showed me clips, but I've never.
Oh! It's so good! Honestly.
Alright, so I guess we have an idea who's coming with me. And then we got Captain America later this week, which we're going to try to do an early review for. So, that'll be fun. See you guys later.
Bye!